I guess it's time, right? It's time. We're embarking on this mission. Grow all of your own food for 1 year, right? Well, we've started off. We did our 10%. We're working on that plan, and now we need to keep going forward. Believe it or not, on paper, this idea came out a lot easier than talking about it because this is such a complicated subject. And I understand that everybody's got different goals. And if you're not concerned about growing all of your own food for a year, this still applies to you, because these techniques and stuff that we're going to be talking about in the coming months and weeks and whatever is all going to help you to improve your garden and grow more efficiently, right? So my theme for the upcoming gardening season is efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. And I think that's where I'm going with this. But all of that being said, we need to figure out what we're gonna grow. I mean, it's that simple of a place to start. And I always say this is the best time of year because everything's really fresh in your head. Some things are still behind or still left in the ground, so you can see like, hey, I do like this, I didn't like that, this didn't do well. And you can just start to figure it out and narrow it down a little bit. But when you look into growing all of your own food, we need to be a little bit more rigid about what we put in the ground. I'm not trying to say that you can't plant whatever you want, you know, and I mean, a lot of us like crazy varieties and all these weird things and stuff like that, and that's fine and dandy. But what I'm trying to say is growing for production is completely different than growing, you know, for sport. And I mean, in the comments, what I'm about to say, let me know if any of this applies to you. I feel, and I know my journey started as I just want to have a garden. And it grew and grew and grew to the point to where it's like, no, I'm not just happy eating a tomato or a bell pepper or something. I want all of my tomatoes, all of my bell peppers to be grown by me. And it just kind of, it's snowballed from there. So if that's applied to you in any way, let me know in the comments below, because I just feel like that's just like the way, or either you just kind of started and just jumped right into it, or like, I'm gonna grow all my own food. This is my ultimate goal. Let's do this. One thing that this time of year is really bad about is figuring out what you want to do in the future too. On the same token, it's like, it's both. It's good and bad. And the bad is just because like this time of year is really hard, especially in my garden with the lack of sun. So everything is well behind and it just kind of drags on. But we can still use this to our advantage and, you know, make decisions based on what we want to do. And I mean, I'm sure you can guess these Brussels sprouts and these broccolis will always be grown in my garden. Video coming up kind of the next video is going to be pretty interesting, I think. So make sure you're stay tuned for that, because it kind of changes the way I looked at gardening completely, and really it factors into this conversation. Look, I still got my post-hole diggers out. I should put them up. It factors into this conversation, but I just didn't have it in me to put it first. I felt like this was more important because when I started growing, I started with your basics, you know, a squash plant, green beans, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, really. And I was really only doing one season. And then the next year I did 2 seasons-ish where I started growing in spring, but fall was many, many years later. And so going back into the last video, like you're gonna have to figure that out and go into multiple seasons of gardening, which means multiple kinds of crops. So if we add in, you know, what goes good with what goes behind another, what won't, you know, fight another as far as like nutrients and pests left behind and crop rotation and all that stuff. The thing is, we may just not want to plant, you know, and this is a number I'm just pulling, you know, just to be dramatic, but 500 tomato plants, you know, paring it down a little bit and using varieties to your advantage. So, and I know tomatoes are like a hot subject because everyone's like, well, I really like this, and this one tastes good, this one tastes bad. And what you have to understand, for me, I don't taste the difference. I really don't even like the taste of tomatoes. I grow them because I like to cook with them. I will eat a sandwich with them periodically, but I don't really care for tomatoes that much. And my whole family just kind of like, whatever, a tomato is a tomato is a tomato. I do taste the difference between grocery store and homegrown tomatoes, but otherwise. And so the idea is not to be settled perfectly on this, right? Don't beat yourself up over it, but go through the next couple seasons with a purpose of finding that tomato, not just wanting to grow any tomato. If you want to can all of your own tomatoes, then look for a canning tomato. If you want slicers, look for a slicer. If you want to dry tomatoes, I personally recommend getting like a large cherry tomato and drying those. They work out really good, you know, and you can use all of that to your advantage. So you don't have to have plant after plant after plant after plant of tomatoes. You can have, you know, a handful of well-producing, well-grown tomatoes, and that's going to go a lot farther. It goes for everything. Peppers, you know, do you want a snacking pepper? Get a smaller variety, right? If I want a snacking pepper, I'll grow this purple beauty pepper, which is a good snacking size pepper, or a lipstick pepper. If I want a bell pepper, I'll grow this. I think I'm growing California Wonder this year. I'm going to grow that again. And then just kind of narrow it down from there. One trap that I fell into is I was on the search for the biggest bell pepper you could get. And what I realized with that quickly was, yeah, you can grow a big bell pepper, but you're not going to get a lot of big bell peppers. You'll get one or two of them, versus these California Wonders, I'm getting medium-sized peppers on regular. I mean, we're probably, if I had to guess, each plant's given us about 10 pounds of peppers throughout the year, throughout the season, and we're still getting them. So use that to your advantage. You know, broccoli, same thing. Broccoli, you want to grow broccoli, then find the head of broccoli that you want, the way you want to eat it, and grow it. And don't worry about side shoot production, because what that does is that ties up your garden bed, especially in the spring, for you to get your next planting in behind it. So be very careful about that stuff. Here's the thing about gardening hacks. Everything is a sacrifice. Everything that we do out here. And every time I see a gardening hack, I always think to myself, what's the sacrifice that's coming behind it? And these things like, you know, side shoots and taking leaves and cooking them and stuff like that. I mean, there's a really big downside to that, and that's tying up the garden. You know, somebody recommended to me one time eating my sweet potato leaves. Well, every leaf that I take off takes down the amount of sweet potatoes that I grow, because it's less energy to the plant. So, you know, maybe I should grow some just to eat the leaves. I don't know. But that's the way I look at it. And so I don't really do that kind of stuff. I like the traditional way of gardening, the way people have been doing it for years and years and years. I like the anticipation and the patience and stuff like that that goes along with it. I think it is lifelong lessons that we can take to our graves and pass on to others that, quite frankly, in the rest of the world is just, you know, traditions that are just gone. And that's not cool. But I digress. You know, we looked for a long time for the Brussels sprout that we wanted. And I tried to do heirlooms. I tried and tried and tried. And then one year I did a side-by-side heirloom and hybrid, and the hybrid just absolutely outperformed. So that's what we went with this year and last year, and we're going to continue to go with. It's just one of those things that we do. Now, I point to the Brussels sprouts for a reason. If I was really and truly concerned about growing all of my own food for a year, I don't know if I'd grow Brussels sprouts. It's a hit or miss crop here. I'm getting them to grow, and this is my final year of like yay or nay, right? So we're gonna see what kind of production we get. I've tweaked everything I can, and if it's what we want, then fine, it'll stay. But it's so iffy about if it will produce maybe it's just not worth it, because you've got to think, if you want to grow all of your own food for a year, you got to have it figured out, and you've got to have everything in here down to a science. You want to leave room for error, but you don't want to leave room for stupid errors. And that's something that we need to think about too. So along that same note, if you're going to only be eating all of your own food, you need to focus on diversity so you can get your nutritional needs met, right? You need to get your full vitamins and fibers and proteins and minerals. And really, it's not that hard to do. I'm not saying look up everything, but think colors, think, textures. I mean, squashes are higher in carbs, tomatoes are higher in water and sugars. There's different kinds of vitamins and minerals in them. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get like a full nutritional fact and like break it down by any stretch of the imagination. But what we need to do is just diversify a little bit more, right? That's why we grow black-eyed peas, or some people call them cow peas. That's why we grow, Seminole pumpkins and butternut squashes and cabbages, because all of those meet all of those different food groups throughout the year. And once you start doing that, you start to figure out that some crops will last longer in the garden than others in certain seasons, meaning you start to get that true diversity. I mean, think about a salad. A salad does not work well grown in the garden. Very rarely do I go out to my garden and harvest everything that needs to go into a salad at the same time. So if you think about a garden salad, let's just say cucumbers, lettuce, tomatoes, a pepper, onion, basic, right? Well, my onions come out in June. My lettuce is already bolted and out of the garden by June. My peppers don't come until July. And then my tomatoes will come in June and July. So if I grow a second round of tomatoes, my peppers will be left over. Then I can squeeze in and get some lettuce growing into the fall, and then hopefully have a fresh tomato left over with some onions that I grew and cured myself. And so it's really, salad is truly a luxury in a garden. Other thing too is the fall garden is very healthy. It's lots of fiber and green and roughage and stuff like that. And the summer garden is just as healthy, but in a different way. And the goal here is to figure out how to get some of these leaves to bleed over into those seasons, so you're minimizing the amount of time you're going without. And so a really good one to go with is these cabbages over here. Cabbages are really good because they will hold over in the refrigerator for a month, even 2 months sometimes. So you can really get them growing. I mean, if you look over here, it's the same thing. These cabbages are going to hold over for a while. And then if you pick your varieties that you want, you can really get it down and figure out how much you want to grow and how big each head's going to be. Just got to feed them correctly and plant them at the right time. And boy, oh boy, are we going to go over planting at the right time. Don't you worry your little heart about that. Bless your heart. I'm going to go right over it, and I'm going to beat that so far into the ground, you ain't going to have no choice but to plant it earlier and get it in the ground at the right time. That's just the way it is around here at Sandy Bottom Homestead. That's the single most thing that has changed everything. But in that same breath, growing the right foods has changed everything. And each year we add stuff in at the same time. These bok choys, look at these bok choys, by the way. I mean, my Lord, that's a sexy, sexy plant. I love it. So we've got our bok choys growing, and that's a newer plant for us to grow here. We've just started adding that in, and it's been a real treat to have in the garden growing and adding that diversity to our plates. There's not but so many greens, in my opinion, that you can grow. I mean, like, kale's gross, collards are good, but if you really, really take it down and break it down, you can use those interchangeably in any meal. So the diversity comes in like completely different crops, right? Because if you're growing your own food, you have to think, you don't get the luxury of going to the grocery store and being like, I think I'm gonna eat that today. You are bound to what is in your garden and coming out of it, right? And even if you're not growing all of your own food, you should still be bound to an extent so you're not wasting, right? We don't want to waste all the energy and effort that we put into growing this stuff. So use that to your advantage and think about it as you grow, harvest, and store. How am I going to use it? How am I going to preserve it, store it? How long is it going to last? What season does it go into? Can I mix it with other vegetables? Let's go back to the tomato. What are we growing right now, other than lettuce, that we can mix with the tomato in a meal in this, in the fall? What is something good? If we were able to get cabbages, fine, but that's not going to happen. Maybe these spicy greens would be good. I don't know. I haven't even eaten them yet. In fact, let's do a taste test, see how it looks. Weird. It looks like a weed, doesn't it? Well, ooh, that's spicy. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, baby. Yeah, I'm down for that. Ooh, that's real good. I gotta say, this took place in my mustard this year and I was a little butthurt about it. Not anymore. I didn't have to wait for it to get overly matured. That is good stuff. Papa Bear's gonna have to find some seeds for that. Whew. Man, that's surprising. It's got that nice, like, horseradishy bite to it. Yeah, very good. Very, very good. Here's one that'll work though. Rutabaga leaves. Look how big these bad boys are. This is really good. You don't have to harvest a whole bunch of them. I could come out here and harvest one leaf off of this corner of each plant. Oh, I said that weird. I could harvest one leaf off of each plant in this corner and make a meal out of it. And come through, do this one another day, do this another day, break it into quarters, and do this another day, and have like a good mixture or a side dish of a meal, and not really affect the production too much of it. And to be quite honest, it would open up the garden quite a bit and let more light in, and could possibly help grow more rutabagas. This is just food for thought for you. As we go into this season of planting, which is a very big season and very important season for us, I just think to myself, what can we do different? How can I improve? And how can I get closer to meeting my goal? My goal is still not to grow 100% of my food. It is still to grow a solid 80. But once you get to 80%, 100 is just right around the corner, right? I mean, you just study for the test a little bit longer and you're gonna get it. Goodbye.